Let's welcome Barney. Take it away, Barney. Tell us your story.
You know what? With all your accolades you're giving me, you tempt me to write a book. I'm going to write a book, How to Be Humble and Know It. It's great to be here. I really enjoy coming to this class. I look forward to coming, by the way. And I want to say this right from the start so you know why I enjoy doing what I'm doing with particularly young people like yourself. There was a time when I was sitting in high school, but no one was talking to us about World War I. That would be my generation. My dad was in World War I, by the way. And I'll show you a picture of him in World War I, too. And, but I was in a history class, and I hated it, because in my generation, it wasn't as exciting. We had to study, I hate memorizing dates. I like to know the history, but not so much the dates. I make it sure that you don't think I'm here speaking for myself as a World War II hero. I don't consider myself to be one. That's not up for me to say to begin with. But I consider myself to be a World War II survivor. And the reason why I say that, because in my eyes, the real heroes of the war were those that paid the ultimate sacrifice for the freedom that we all having here today. Every one of you, and myself included. You know, I don't know of any World War II veteran, including myself, who really wanted to die. But every one of us was willing to do that if it meant to preserve our country and our freedom. And I was one of the fortunate ones to survive and come back. And those that didn't make it, you know, think about this too as well. Many of them are not even buried here where they were born. Some were buried where they fell. I witnessed some being buried at sea. And some were never even found. And every one of them died for each one of you, including me too. So I want you to take this freedom that you have seriously and enjoy it. You have to learn to be friendly with one another. You know, war is hell. I'm not here to stress so much about the hell of war. I'll tell you some things that I experienced, but war is hell. I don't look forward to another war, and I hope you, every one of you, never have to go into one. But we have no control over that. When I was in high school, the war was just beginning in Europe. I was at a wedding on December 7th. What's so important about December 7th, 1940? What was that? What was important about it? What happened? Pearl Harbor. How many of you remember that? Pearl Harbor, December 7th. You know where I was that day? I was at my aunt's wedding. I was only 17 years old. And it was a combination of an Italian bride and an Irish groom. And boy, what a wedding that was. But that combination, and I was looking forward more to what we're going to serve than anything else. But you know, I was enjoying myself at that wedding. And while the music was being played, one of the bridesmaids came over to me and wanted me to join her in a dance. Now, I said to her, I don't really know how to dance that well. Well, that's okay. You just do what I tell you to do and follow me. And so I did. And in my generation, we had a dance that was called like the jitterbug. I don't know if you know what that is. It's kind of crazy. And sure enough, we get on the floor, and I start following her moves, you know, and enjoying myself. And all of a sudden, I was embarrassed because nobody else was dancing but us two, and they made a circle around watching us. And I was an amateur. But she did a good job, and I was following her, and I looked pretty good, I guess. But you know what happened? All during that festivity, I heard the news that Pearl Harbor was bombed. I didn't know a thing about Pearl Harbor. I couldn't understand what that meant. But I noticed that one of the bridesmaids was crying during hearing that news. And so I inquired, and I was told that her brother was in the Navy, and he was stationed at Pearl Harbor, and of course, she didn't know exactly if he survived it or not. And to this day, I don't know if he did or didn't. But it wasn't too long after that, I was in the Navy. I wanted to go into the Air Force, but when I went down for my physical, I was called a selective volunteer, commonly known as a draftee. And the reason why I didn't volunteer, because my dad was in World War I. And I didn't want to hurt his feelings let him think that I was anxious to leave the home. And I knew he knew the horrors of war. I'll show you a picture of my dad in World War I. He's 20 years of age at this time. He got the Purple Heart. He was wounded in France. And I have a picture alongside of him, 20 years of age as well, in World War II. I'll pass it around, and you can look at it. Here, you can start on this end and pass it all. Give me the second picture. That's it. Thank you. Anyway, I got called, so I went there, got my physical. As I came out, they told us that day that one of every 3 persons would end up into the Marine Corps. They had first choice. The second choice went to the Navy, and the third choice went to the Army. Well, I wanted to go into the Army Air Force at the time, the Air Corps was called, so I had no problem thinking I was going to be selected. So when I went out, who do you think called me to his desk but the Navy officer? And what do you think I did? I shook my head no. I mean, I wasn't in the service yet. I could say no, couldn't I? So I went over to the Army officer, and he says, I'm sorry, the Navy officer wanted you. You have to go to him. So I went over to the Army officer, and he said to me, what's wrong with the Navy? I said, nothing wrong with the Navy. Well, you're in it now. And he stamped it. That's how I got into the Navy. And I don't mind being in the Navy either after I got in there. But anyway, I went into the Navy, went to boot camp. My last leave home was on June 4th, 1943. When, anybody remember that day, June 4th? Anybody study that date yet? What happened on June 4th, 1943? Normandy. We invaded D-Day. I was home on my last leave. I was assigned to go to New Orleans to pick up a brand new ship. That's my ship there, by the way. I have a model of that ship. The AOG-10 USS Nemasket. It was a Navy-fueled ship, and I didn't know at the time what kind of a ship it was until I got there. And the ship was built in Savage, Minnesota. And they sailed it down the Mississippi River. And we had 130 on that crew. The ship was 310 feet long, 48 feet wide. And I am one of the last living survivors of the original crew of that ship. And with that, I have a title called a plank owner. When you are one of the original crew, put the ship in commission, you're considered to be a plank owner. I never owned the plank, but they told me I did. But anyway, they sent me to school, and they trained me to be a diesel engine mechanic. And so I became a petty officer. When I graduated from the school, I became a petty officer third class, and then they made second class, and then they made first class just before I was dismissed after war was over. But I spent 2 solid years in that ship. How would you like to spend 2 years in the Pacific Ocean on the ship that was home? It wasn't a pleasant experience all the time, and I'll tell you a little bit about that as well. I didn't realize how big the Pacific Ocean was. It looked like it never ended. It was horrifying. Our first trip after we left New Orleans was to go to the Chesapeake Bay for shakedown to test the ship out. And from there, we went to Dutch West Indies, Aruba, to get loaded up with aviation gas. Then I found out exactly what my situation was. A ship loaded with aviation gas is very highly explosive if it ever got hit, wouldn't you say? But that was okay. But as we were ready to leave the Dutch West Indies Aruba, we were notified to be on the lookout for German submarines that are looking for all those kind of ships coming out. Fortunately, we didn't find any submarines looking for us, and they didn't see us, and we didn't see them. And we headed for the Panama Canal. And my first entrance into California after going through the canal was to San Diego. We were there in San Diego for about a week. This is 1944 now. And from San Diego, we headed for Pearl Harbor, and Pearl Harbor became my home port. I have to tell you what my claim to fame is with Pearl Harbor. You ready for this? Don't get shocked when I tell you this. I fell overboard in Pearl Harbor. Obviously I survived. I'm here, right? But the only thing I lost was my hat. And how it happened, I'll tell you. I don't think I ever said this to the class before, Mr. Dewey, but I want to share with them now because I'm getting repercussions about it now. Matter of fact, there's a video we're being interviewed on YouTube, but I'm going to tell you now. Well, anyway, I lost my hat in the process. When I came home out of the Navy, anybody I knew was going to Hawaii, I offered them a reward if they find my hat, because my name was stenciled in my Navy hat. Nobody ever did. But several years after that, I went to Hawaii on vacation with my daughter's family. Without them knowing about it, I took another sailor hat that I had at home, and I put it in my luggage. And when I got to the hotel, I went off by myself down the beach with my hat, and I filled it up with seaweed and twigs and sand. And I came back, and I started screaming, I found my hat. Well, I couldn't fool my family. They knew I was up to something. But the people that worked at the hotel took me serious. They wanted to take my picture. They were going to go up the newspaper. I had to stop them. And so that was my claim to fame. But I'll tell you what happened. It was nighttime, and I was assigned to the captain's gig that night to run the boat to take them ashore. And during the war, there's no lights. Everything's in the dark. The ship's not lit up. The boat that I'm in is not lit up. I took the captain to the shore in Pearl Harbor, then I head back to my ship. We got back to the ship. Now, the tide was extremely low, and the ship was extremely high. And in order for me to get onto the ship, I had to climb up a canopy on the boat and reach up where the ship was to pull myself up. But unfortunately, I had injured my finger aboard the ship, and it was bandaged. I lost the tip of my finger with an accident I had aboard the ship. No Purple Heart for that, though. And I was putting too much pressure on my finger. I let go thinking I was going to fall back into the boat below me. But you know what? The boat wasn't there any longer. I didn't see it. It moved from the tide, moving in and out. And I fell into the water in Pearl Harbor. I felt my hat going off my head. I was worried about my hat. Would you believe that? And I heard my name being screamed out by my shipmates who were on the boat. You know, Barney's overboard. Now, I was a little concerned because I didn't know what I was going to find going down near the pier, because you don't know what wreckage might be down below. I don't know. I'm in the dark, can't say anything. But I came back. And I came back, they pulled me out, and I had to slush all the way back to sick bay. We didn't have a doctor aboard our ship. We had a corpsman. And he took the tip of my finger and he threw it overboard. But it grew back, believe it or not. If you want to look at it later, I'll show it to you. So anyhow, that's my experience about falling in water. Now, I'm excited about being on this brand new ship. I'm a brand new sailor, and we're heading for our first cargo to bring some fuel to an airfield in an island called Christmas Island. Never heard of it before. And we went sailing for Christmas Island from Pearl Harbor. We kept sailing, and we couldn't find the island after a long time in the ocean. Everybody was getting worried, where's this island? Because it was our first experience going out. We had practically all new sailors aboard our ship. We had a few experienced fellas. And we were concerned. We couldn't find this island. And finally, we see one tree popping up out in the middle of the ocean. That must be it, Christmas Island. Never been back there since. But that was a small island. But then we would travel out of Pearl Harbor and go to various islands to bring fuel. And all the islands we had been going to already were secured, because I went in 1944, and we already took over some of the islands, like Saipan and Tinian and other islands like that. My first experience in combat. Ship was fully loaded, and I found out something strange. When the convoy was formed, my ship was placed at the very end of all the convoys. Nobody wanted to be anywhere near us. Obviously, you know why. Why? If we got hit and in the middle of a convoy being loaded with aviation gas, which is highly explosive, it would affect all the other ships. So they kept us at the very end of every convoy. That's kind of scary. My first experience in combat, we were ordered to go to Iwo Jima. Never heard of it before. Got to Iwo Jima, and I understand Iwo Jima was bombed a whole month before we even got there. And we were assigned to be close to the beach because we had to be accessible, giving landing crafts fuel as well. So I had a bird's eye view of Iwo Jima. I could see it plenty. My gun position was on the starboard side, which is the right side of the ship. I could see the whole island with my binoculars. You know what? All during the bombing, that island was only about 5 miles long. The sand is all black. I think I have some sand here to show you. Somebody gave me some. I'll pass it around. So on this side first, you want to pass it around? That's the sand of Iwo Jima. The sand is black because it's a volcanic island, although it's not an active volcano, and the sand is all black. That's the first time I ever seen black sand. And I'm watching the bombing take place, and with my binoculars, I didn't see one Japanese military man on that island. Well, I could understand why they wouldn't be visible with all the bombing that we were doing, and the bombing was so extreme, I thought the island would sink. I didn't think anybody could even survive all that bombing. But here comes the first wave of Marines coming into land after weeks of bombing and all that taking place. I'm on top side. Here comes the first boatload of Marines passing by my ship. Those of us that were topside in our gun position, and we were told not to do any firing because we don't want to attract fire, so we had to stay quiet. And as these Marines came back, pretend this was their rifle. This is what I saw. Straight ahead. We waved to them to give them a high sign, wishing them well. You know what? No one Marine and that landing craft even looked at us. Not one Marine and that landing craft attempted to wave back to us. I didn't expect them to. You know something? As brave as they are, they look frightened to me. And as they were holding their rifle straight ahead, I assumed a scared look on their face. I was wondering what they were thinking. You know what I thought they were thinking? I don't know for sure, but it probably would have been me if I had been a Marine. My hat's off to every Marine. They're the bravest men I ever seen in my life. You sailors are fortunate. You're staying anchored, and we're going in. And you know what? Some didn't even make it. They came floating back out. And they died for each one of you here today, and they died for me too. That's why I'm here to talk to you, to let you know that the freedom that we are enjoying here in this country didn't come free. Somebody paid with their life for you and for me. I told the story many times before and want to tell it to you too. How we should get along with each other. We can't prevent people from attacking us, that I know. After the war was over, I was the first American with my ship to land in Shanghai, China. I'm on shore patrol duty. As I'm walking in the street of Shanghai, China, I've seen two Chinese people arguing, and they were going pretty strong, waving their hands and all that. And I hate to admit to this, but even though we came out finishing a war, we were expecting to see a fist fight after the way they were arguing. So we gathered around watching this thing going on. Went on for about 20 minutes, and suddenly they stopped arguing and they walked away. And we were disappointed that we didn't see a fist fight. I'm ashamed to admit to that. But I looked around and I saw a fairly different, well-dressed Chinese man there, and I went over to him, and the best with my ability, a few Chinese words I learned with my hands, I asked the question, how come we didn't see a fist fight? And you know what he told me? I'm going to share it with you. What he told me was profound. He said to me this: in China, when two people are arguing with each other, the first person to raise his hand to hit the other person automatically loses the argument. You know why? Because he has nothing more to say. Does that make sense? If you and I think that we could win an argument by hitting somebody to convince them, we already lost the argument. And besides, it's okay to debate with somebody. There's nothing wrong with that. You can all the debate you want. That's wonderful. But if another person has a better argument than we have, rather than hitting them, maybe it's a thing for us to listen to what they have to say. It may be worthwhile putting it into effect. And you know something? Even God said the same thing. In Scripture God said, let us come and reason together. It's important for us to remember that. Get along with each other. Just because maybe doesn't dress like you, speak like you, or look like you means that we can't get along? I feel terrible about some of these college students that don't want to hear anything anybody else has to say, and they have a riot and they prevent them from speaking. And what's even amazing about all that, they even destroy their own university that they're going to by setting it on fire and breaking windows and stuff like that. What sense does that make? They already lost their argument, as far as I'm concerned. I learned that off a Chinese man, and I never seen such poverty like I did in China. Said that profound statement to me that I'm addressing to every class that I've come to speak to now. Think about that, will you guys, please? Okay. Iwo Jima. The battle went on from February 1945 till March. But you know what it cost? Almost 7,000 United States Marines died on Iwo Jima. They died for each one of us. They didn't want to die, but they were willing to go for you and for me. Remember that. Suddenly, about the third day, I think it was, I'm in my gun position on the top side of the ship, and I see a flag flying on top of Mount Suribachi. I couldn't tell whose flag it was. I didn't think it would be ours. I didn't think the Marines could ever get up there that fast. But on the next day, with my binoculars, I saw the stars and stripes. And I got all excited, and I said to my shipmate, wow, that's our flag up there. Could you believe that? It's our flag. And some of my shipmates were talking about maybe we can get some Japanese artifacts. But we don't go on the beach. We have to wait maybe some Marine, if we want to ask for one, if they would donate something to us. But you know, I wasn't interested in that when I saw the American flag flying on top of Mount Suribachi. I turned around and I saw the flag that was flying on my ship. I said, you know what? To myself, I'm going to take that flag down from my ship, because normally we would change the flag after it gets weather beaten, and take it down and put a new one up and burn the old one. So after Okinawa, I went to the quartermaster and I said, when you pull the flag down to change it, would you mind saving for me? He did. I brought the flag with me today, and I'm going to give you the honor and the privilege to, Mr. Dewey, take a picture of you getting connected with its history. I'll show it to you later when we open it up, but I brought it here. Iwo Jima was hell. From Iwo Jima, we went to Okinawa. A couple of months later. In Okinawa, by that time, the Japanese realized that they were losing the war. And their whole Air Force was wiped out. Not by us. You know why the Japanese lost all their planes in Okinawa? Anybody have any idea what took place? Ever hear the word kamikaze? Well, that's what they did. We lost a lot of ships at Okinawa by kamikaze going to the ship, but they wiped out their whole Air Force because when they did a kamikaze, not only did the pilot die, but the plane was crashed and nobody else could fly that plane any longer. But they did it out of desperation. They didn't want us to go to Japan. And here comes a kamikaze right for my ship. Sometime during that battle of Okinawa. Right towards where my gun position was on the bow of that ship. And there was nothing you can do about it. It's coming at you so fast. And suddenly, that kamikaze went down before it reached us. The captain of my ship signaled to the captain of the other ship to thank him for shooting the plane down. And you know what his response was? His words, "Hell no! We were covering the Marines going in, and he crossed our line of fire by accident." You know what? When I heard the message that captain sent back to our ship, when the captain announced it over the loudspeaker system to us to let us know, he said it was an accident. I'm a Christian. I called it an act of God on my part. I'm going to tell you something that's very humbling for me to say. I was aboard that ship for 2 years. I had no intentions at that time of ever going into the ministry. That came much later in my life. And as I look back on it, to think how many near misses my ship came to be destroyed. We never lost a ship. We never lost a sailor. We all came back alive. And I'm humbled to say this because God had a calling in my life to speak to you kids right here today and many more. And it's a humble thing. It brings tears to my eyes when I think about that. After Okinawa, well, let me tell you this. Before going to Okinawa, we were at the island of Ulithi getting ready to go to Okinawa, although we didn't know it at that moment we were going to Okinawa. It was almost midnight. General quarter sounds. I run to my gun position, and here comes a Japanese bomber looking for this load of ships in the harbor, not a harbor, but around the island. We didn't have harbors there. We had the islands would be surrounded by steel nets to protect us from submarines. And here we come out, the full moon out shining, and where do you think that moon is shining? Right on me and my ship. And I see this bomber coming by. We start firing, we shot it down. That's the first plane that our ship ever took down a bomber, a Val bomber, a Japanese bomber. The most scariest thing we had that took place at Okinawa was a typhoon on the China Sea, and we were told to ride it out. That was even scarier than a kamikaze, and I'll tell you why. It picked my ship up and a lot of other ships like a toy. You know how high some of these mountains here in California? That's how high the wave would take the ship up in the air. And then the propeller of the ship would be out of the water. If you're down the engine room, the whole ship would be vibrating, you're driving you crazy. You didn't know what's going on. When I was topside, I could see what was happening. Now you're on top of this mountain of water, and suddenly the water disappears. And my ship is not an airplane, and gravity takes over. The next thing you know, you're down in a hole, and the ocean's all around you, surrounding your ship. And if it gets down the smokestack and goes down the engine room, you're sunk. That's scary. 5 destroyers sank and capsized, all because General Halsey commanded them to refuel underway. My ship is a ship to refuel ships. We won an award because we refueled 6 ships underway at one time. But we never did it during a typhoon. Halsey had promised MacArthur he was going to go to meet him in Leyte to make the invasion to the Philippine Islands, and he ordered his destroyer escorts to be refueled up during that typhoon. 5 of them capsized. I don't know how many sailors died in that ship, but they died for you. They died for me. That's why our freedom is precious. And that's my main mission today, to tell you that. Not so much about the horrors of war, but what we learn from it. That we need to learn to be kind and friendly to one another. And that's my mission in life. 3 more minutes. 3 minutes and I didn't even tell you half of what we went through. But you don't want to hear all that anyway. I think you got the picture, right? You're not sure yet? You have to come back for more then. When you see the videos. If you go on Facebook, you might see some other information, okay? But we're pressed for time. I have another class coming in, is that right?
Yeah.
All right, so.
We're going to take some pictures in 2 minutes, Barney, with your flag.
Okay. Here's the flag. Oh, by the way, nobody so far has asked me, but many times one of the students would ask me, did you bring back any war artifacts with you from the time of the service? I said, I sure did. You're looking at them now. I'm an artifact.
Hey, Barney, you always have some really clever things to say. Now, the other line that I want you to reflect upon
Don't tell me.
is about the library. When every veteran dies.
Oh. See, he remembers everything I say.
It's a powerful.
Like I told you before, I have a good memory. I could always remember when I forgot something. That's as far as it goes. No, I was interviewed several times by a newspaper reporter, and one comment I made to them was that when a World War II veteran dies, a whole library dies with him. Okay. If this flag could speak, it'd probably tell you a whole lot more. You know, many Marines passed by under this flag and didn't come back. I want you to know that. So when Mr. Dewey asked you to come and pose together with this flag, remember that. This flag represents those that didn't make it back, that died for each one of you and me included. You understand that? I hope you did. That's why I'm here. And I want to tell you something else. I'm 94 years of age, and I think the reason why God is keeping me and giving me this opportunity to live this long is to talk to you people to get the message before God takes me home. And I hope it sticks with you as like it stuck with me. God bless you. Any questions? Yes.
What was the name of your ship again?
USS Nemasket, Nemasket.
Blake, just pull the ship towards you. It's on that plaque, which is right here on the
Yeah, there's a plate
front
there.
corner.
Turn it around, you can see the plate there. See it?
You probably have time.
It's
for
called an AOG, an auxiliary an oil and gas. 10, yes.
So, in our generation, what do you think that we get wrong about the war, and what would you want to correct?
Oh, what you got wrong about the war? Well, I don't think you got the full impact of it, the cost of it. You know, you're probably glad that you were not in it, but my main reason to speak to you is to let you know what it costs for you to be here today. And I don't think anybody, have you ever thought of that before you heard me say it? No. I mean, you took it for granted. I just read on my iPhone, this guy is going to sue his parents for being born because he never had permission to be born. Could you believe that stupidity? It came over my iPhone. You probably, if you have one, you probably get the same message I did. He wants his parents to pay him compensation because they never got permission to be born. How stupid is that? He's only fortunate that his parents didn't abort him. You're fortunate you're not in a war. You're fortunate that you didn't go into World War II. I'm fortunate that I came back. So I can tell it to you and hope that you don't have to go to war. We can't predict that, of course. The Bible says there will always be wars and rumors of wars. People don't know how to get along. But you have to learn to get along with each other in the school. And you got to be a friend to be able to have a friend. That's my recommendation to you.
So first group, can you guys just come around here?
I want you to notice the freight on the end of the flag. All the way down. Get straight out. Pull it tight.
You guys are working out the rules. Yeah, I think that's perfect.
You notice the frayed edges on the flag?
Yeah.
How many stars? Oh, don't count. You're supposed to know.
50.
How many?
50.
Not on this flag.
49.
No?
48.
Well, gee, you guys studying history?
All right. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right.
How many remember that famous photograph about the flag going up at Iwo Jima? I never saw that, what you saw, until much later after coming home. Then I realized how important this flag became. I didn't want the souvenir from my ship, but now it's really part of history when I saw that from Iwo Jima. Hold it tight. Get close, that's it. Hold the flag. I want you to touch the flag.
Perfect. 1, 2, 3. So
Is that it? We got everybody?
We got everybody.
Thank you.
Some of them
Thank
want
you for your
individual
service.
pictures.
Thank you for being here.
Thank
God
you.
bless you.
Thank you for listening. After the war, man. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thanks for listening. Thank you, guys. Appreciate speaking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you both. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you for listening. A pleasure speaking to you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for telling us this story.
Thank you.
Thank
God
you
bless
for
you
your
both.
service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for talking to us.
I'm glad I was able to come. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Come back again. I'll be here for round 2.
Thank you.